we've taken a big step up in reasoning capability, you might say intelligence.
If you ask it to produce something unique, it will actually evaluate its different generated alternatives for uniqueness, drive towards something unique, and come up with unique solutions that is not seen before.
89% in competition code, 83% in competition math, 78% in PhD level science questions. So that means it's actually smarter than almost everyone. I mean, any security hole that's out there is going to be exploited.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this new episode of Co-Creating with AI. This is our journey exploring and understanding the fast-moving world of AI. Today we're going to talk about O1, the new model from OpenAI. How are you today, Rasmus?
I'm really good. Really energized. My daughter was spinning less this night, so I got a good sleep.
Nice. Good. Congrats.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm in Stockholm. I went up really early, 5 a.m. morning, and that's funnily enough. That's also a recipe for to be energized.
Yeah, both work. Sleep well, or
yes, sleep less. So we're gonna talk about O1 today. Did you try it out at any point past week?
I mean, to be honest, I've just done that a little. I've mostly been looking at the cool examples from people I trust. And I think it's funny with the last two episodes we've had, which is the one I did alone, which was basically saying, hey, if we just we see that speed is increasing, we see that cost is going down, and let's assume that intelligence keeps going up, even though it had sort of plateaued for a little bit, like half a year, 10 months. And then the next one is like AI hype, so much hype. And then this one comes out, and it seems like, I can't be conclusive yet, but it seems like we've taken a big step up in reasoning capability. You might say intelligence of the frontier model. It's not widely available, but from what we can see, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and it's also that O1 represents a fully new architecture of an AI model, so that you actually get around both scaling laws and data scarcity, or like the need for more data to increase intelligence of AI models.
Can we double click on that? What do you mean by that? Like for everyone?
Yeah, so if you only use reinforced learning to train an AI model, then you need more and more data to increase the intelligence. And what O1 is representing is a new architecture where they've actually found some mechanism to introduce diversity at the point of inference. So what they do is that it's basically a chain of thought or a tree of thought architecture where they branch out. So at the point of inference, they introduce diversity. So they have a bunch of models thinking at the same time with some random seed so that they think differently. And then they evaluate which directions are promising, and then they build from there and more, like in a chain of chain of thought fashion. So what that means is that at the point of inference, you can explore, instead of creating intelligence by applying more data for training, you can increase the intelligence by coming up with new algorithms for introducing diversity at the point of inference. And also you can just ramp up compute in order to make the models sort of think harder, and so that's it opens up whole new venues for scaling up intelligence.
But I think that's interesting though, because from what have you heard this from OpenAI like directly, what you just said, or is this like conclusions by you or other smart people in the space? Is this like
it's sort of the natural? It is. Conclusions is not promise made by OpenAI. It's just the nature of how it works, that in order for it to reason like it does, it also needs to have both diversity and evaluation of the results. Basically, it has to have those components for the algorithm to function.
Right.
And that means that you have new vectors, new directions to increase intelligence. And so it's sort of the diversity vector is sort of a creativity component. Like smart thinkers need to be creative because you need to evaluate a lot of hypotheses. you can basically say that's what the O1 model is doing.
Okay, interesting. Now, the reason I'm asking, and this is probably the wrong place to start this podcast, I should probably start talking about like all the cool stuff it can do and how it's breakthroughs that get there. But just to finish this point of discussion, I think it was a little bit interesting that, you know, you can't specify the system prompt for the O1 when you use it. And that the primary like way you see it working is basically you see it going like structuring up plan for how to approach a problem, and then breaking it down and taking those steps, and then, you know, going from step to step, which is kind of a pretty well used agentic framework. We use it ourselves in Multiply, but the results seem to be very good. So like I'm still like a little bit skeptical. Is this basically GPT-4o? And then they built their own kind of agentic system prompt, so to say, or framework. I mean, it's probably just a prompt that means that when you give it an instruction, it breaks it down into kind of an agentic, like a plan for how to do it, and then takes it step by step. Or is this actually something that they've trained that is new, so that the model is, so to say, agentic in itself? I'm not sure yet, because they've been so secretive about what it is, and they're so good at kind of wanting to stay one step ahead and being a bit mysterious, you know, so to seem that they're like super ahead for fundraising, etc. You know, just the thing that they spoke with the US government officials before releasing this and then let that leak. There's a lot of things here that are like, you know, on the topic of like hype, etc. But the results are amazing. So maybe we should get into that instead of being like skeptical on how they did it.
I just want to say like comment on one thing, which is that one thing that has been confirmed by OpenAI is that when it does its chain of thought in the steps that are hidden, it's actually not limited by any kind of like cautious AI should not do dangerous stuff kind of mechanism. So it's unlimited in its steps, and then when it does the output, that's when it's applying what should be. What can we actually show to the user? So they made the decision to not show the steps because it can have potentially dangerous things in there. That's one difference between just chaining your own agent structure and using the O1 model. That if you're chaining, you will be chaining limited AI and LLMs, and each step will be limited by the kind of security mechanisms that each provider has installed. And then with the O1 model, it will think freely and then filter at the end.
Yeah, I thought that was actually pretty interesting. Now we're only talking about like the technical side of this or the cool examples, but whatever. That they've apparently like approached the alignment issue, so to say, like getting the model to just not do things they don't want it to, by giving that to the model and having it look at that in the end. And so they haven't tried to enforce that, from what I've understood, in the kind of human feedback part of training, or at least not only, but to have the model actually reflect on, is this harmful given the guidelines of OpenAI? So there's a bunch of things that are like relatively new here. Also, the fact that it's really expensive to use, and it makes sense if it's whatever way they're doing this, you know, multiple step exploration, etc., and you know, comparing alternatives and reflecting on the results, etc. It's much more expensive to run. But maybe we should get into why I think, like for us in Multiply, we will definitely apply it as part of our workflows and offer it to our clients, and where I think why I think people will pay for this. So what's your, like, you played with the bit yourselves, right? So maybe we should start there. Like, what's your coolest example so far of using it?
Yeah, so what I find the coolest thing is actually not to do what the entire web seems to be doing, which is just throw math problems at it or coding problems, which is very quantified and solid, and you can measure the results and so on. And you have lots and lots of evals to benchmark. But what I find is much more interesting with O1 is to actually give it more qualitative problems where you ask it to be creative. Because since it has this diversity mechanism and the chain of thought, if you ask it to produce something unique, like come up with an innovative solution to this problem or an innovative startup idea in this space, which is unique and unheard of, if you put that in the prompt, it will actually evaluate its different generated alternatives for uniqueness, and it will much more much better than just a plain 4.0 model drive towards something unique and come up with unique solutions that is not seen before. And that's like that creativity that you can actually get out of it is a lot better.
Oh, interesting.
And in my sense.
Yeah, that is actually really interesting, because one of the kind of key challenges of using existing level like AI models, at least straight up, like for people using ChatGPT, after a while, they're like, yeah, that's a ChatGPT answer to it. You know, they ask for advice or something or ideas, but it's like AR, or, you know, they should do a virtual reality app if you ask for like marketing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that if that's true, and it makes sense, right? Especially the more you give it access to tools, right? So if you're given like it the assignment to find the unique marketing idea within a niche that's in stark contrast to existing latest marketing campaigns by the main competitors for a specific company or whatever, something that we would do like with our own agentic model, then I can see that just adding this extra reasoning capability, at least at the end of like gathering the data, which probably we'll do, is going to be able to like really evaluate that data and look at like compared to like uniqueness. Okay, this is the data set. We want something unique, and that's in contrast. It seems like that will really increase the value actually of many types of applications. That's true, because uniqueness is like is really important in like, you know, in a lot of things like communication, product decisions, etc.
Another aspect is if you do constrained text generation, like you wanted to write a song lyric for you, and you ask it for something which is really common in good songwriting, which is internal rhyming, that you're not only rhyming at the end of the lines, but inside the lines as well of a song. That is going to be just terrible as a result if you ask GPT-4 of that. It can't do it. While O1, since it's iterating on the result and it's bringing in the best versions from a differentiated set of alternatives, it's actually going to be able to produce a quite complicated rhythm or rhyming structure within a song lyric. And so that's also an example of how it can achieve a much better result, which is qualitative rather than quantified, and be creative with a task within a set of constraints.
That's actually interesting. There's a lot of business problems, and I mean life problems as well. But let's stick to business probably. Like, it's like like having a bunch of walls, you know, find a bunch of constraints, right? That you need to like, we have this budget. Oh, like this is the existing strategy. All right, these are our products. This is what we know about our target audience. And then it's like, how are we gonna actually increase our market share and like find that? Like, it's like a little bit like a maze to find its way. So if that makes sense, right? That just saying in one go, hey, these are all the constraints, come up with something great. That's not going to be like the way to do it. You need to iterate on that and compare it to the constraints and have different alternatives, and then hopefully the end result should be your way through the maze. Is that like how you like? Is that a fair way?
Exactly. Like to maximize an outcome within the constraints. I think that's you described it perfectly. That you need to iterate in order to achieve that, and O1 does that very fast internally and like without applying alignment constraints on top of the constraints that you provide as a user. So really, I think that's part of the geniality of the model.
Cool. I mean, interesting. I'll bring in the other side, because I think it's interesting, and the one that people like the coding and science part. So just a couple of main data points, and then let's reflect on it. But I mean, first on just a concrete thing. I mean, for example, Sam Altman, who's the founder and CEO of OpenAI, posted like how O1 does in like competition math and competition code and like PhD level science questions, and the results are actually like ridiculous. In like it's like 89% in competition code, 83% in competition math, 78% in PhD level science questions. So that means it's actually smarter than almost everyone. In the sense, just in these kind of like very quantitative or like scientific, logical reasoning questions, it's better than almost everyone. Because this is also scoring across different types of science questions, different types of coding questions, different type of math questions. So it's still not like, from what I've understood, maybe beating the best of the best, but it's really up there. And then just one data point on that is that apparently OpenAI itself, I mean, this is probably a little bit to hype it, but they have entire like pull requests, so commits to their code, written by O1, by this new model. And then, of course, you add this into things we talked about before, like the AI scientist kind of frameworks, etc. It makes a lot of sense that things could take off pretty quickly from here, now that we have this potentially PhD level intelligence or capability that, for example, Sam Altman has been speaking about for a while. And I mean, the examples we see so far, like most of us see, is like what's his name? Matthew Berman is like a really good a YouTuber guy, asking it to write a Tetris game, and it does it straight up first go, which none of the previous models could do. But that, I think, like those examples almost underestimate the importance of this, right? Which is that, now we have a PhD kind of general scientist available for very, very little money.
Yeah.
And this most likely applies to a lot of different categories of knowledge and skill and intelligence.
And I've seen not one but two actual PhDs that has reproduced a whole year of research in just a few hours with O1. So that they posted on Twitter that O1 replicated the code that took me 1 year to write within a few hours of me coaching it. And then with a few caveats on like that he had to provide some guardrails on it. But it's really like coming along quite far in terms of coding ability as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I really still don't think that we'll have the like fully autonomous agent roaming without supervision and getting really good results. I still don't think that O1 will be, able to start a business and run it in a like quickly changing market landscape. I really don't think we're at that. But in this example, or like be a great scientist on its own, but it's going to help a bunch of scientists do a lot better science quicker. And like to like, it could be like, work like 10 to 100 times output for the good ones. Like if you have the budget to spend on the compute, which I think people will have, because it will be so cost efficient for the labs to kind of spend on this. So really something special.
Another really interesting use case I found for O1 is to use the output from O1 to prompt Claude for coding, because O1 has these ways of producing quite creative results. So if you ask Claude to write its own specifications, it's not gonna like take it to the next levels. It's not gonna bring creativity into the picture the way that O1 can. So when I write my prompts for Claude, if I bring in O1 as a co-creator of the prompt, it means that it's sort of on some problems to solve, more of an equal co-creator in that it also brings creativity to the table, not only fleshing out ready-made ideas, but actually contributing some ideas as well to the mix. And then since I haven't started using O1 for actual coding, I still use Sonnet for that because I'm so geared up with that, like in tune with that model. But prompting it with output from O1 is really excellent. Like Sonnet really responds well to having specification files, like a few different text files, just to like as guardrails, and that can really be like produced by O1.
Yeah, I think this is also like where these models will be so different things in combination.
Yeah,
that's when you get the magic.
Yeah,
but okay, so let's be like on the skeptical side. I want to add one more. Or do you have anything on the cool side?
Yeah, one more on the to build on the hype before we build on the anti-hype is this anecdote about when they ran evals on a computer security test. There's one test for actually for high schoolers when humans do the test, which is called PICO CTF. So capture the flag is a testing standard for computer security, where the human is tasked with finding the flag file. So it like break into the system, find the file which contains what is called a flag, and then if you have that flag, you have evidence that you solved the test. And so when they ran O1 against PICO CTF, it actually scored quite measly, only 43% success rate. And but one thing happened during the test, which was that the Docker container of the test environment crashed. And instead of giving up when it received an error message, O1 searched for and found that it had access to the Docker daemon and restarted the container so it could run the test. But then it realized, hey, I have access to Docker. I actually don't have to go through these jumps and loops in order to solve the problem. I can just go into the Docker container, find the flag file in the file system of Docker, and pull it out and solve the problem that way. So it hacked the test rather than hacking the system that performing the test.
Now that is pretty cool. That's it's gonna be interesting for cybersecurity. I think like with this, I mean, and getting to the last part is the open source one, but the open source version of this. I mean, any security hole that's out there is going to be exploited over the next years.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll have a bunch of like AI agents first used to patch securities and people like investing in it. But those who do not are probably going to be hacked by like some AI-powered hacker.
AI-driven penetration testing must be like really high on the agenda for every company.
Yeah. I mean, must be. I mean, we're actually looking at that now, but we haven't found a good AI version yet. But probably that will come now with O1 pretty quickly. But just on the other side of it, I'm not sure if this supports what I said in the beginning, but there's information out there that there's been an open source project now that did a copycat OpenAI O1 model called G1, which is powered by Meta's Llama 3.1 model and Grok with a Q. So it's quick, basically, running on Grok. And it basically what they've done is package Llama 3.1 such that it uses reasoning chains to solve problems. And it apparently seems to be solving pretty much the same things that O1 does, which in my mind, I haven't looked at the details here, sort of supports the case that maybe this is, not a completely new type of kind of model architecture, but something that wraps kind of GPT-4o in to use a chain of like a reasoning chain in a smart way. But we'll see, But just that, I think that also sort of adds to the last point we spoke about, that these capabilities will be out there for everyone because of Meta's kind of open source train. And because like the open source community moves so quickly on anything that comes out. I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because Llama 3.1 has been out there for a bit, but no one had done that. And then O1 comes, and then like days later, an open source project has like been inspired by it and copied it. And I think that's like one thing that's a little bit underestimated still in like the whole AI race and like the AI the space of AI development is the open source community is on fire. Like I don't know, you've been involved with this more, but I can't imagine that it's been this much on fire about anything ever. Like this many people like building things this quickly and competing for attention and being the first to be at top of the game, so to say. Is that your sense as well?
And definitely, and also with Meta contributing foundation models open source and like all of these incredibly expensive resources being poured into the open source world as well. No matter, I totally agree. Open source has really leveled up its game, and I think that if the open source world just had a mechanism of focusing energy, then O1 could have come out of an open source project much earlier. But it's sort of when OpenAI shows something, everybody believes and then can do it in a few days.
Yeah.
Like it's such a incredibly strong alignment towards a goal. It's like when they showed Sora. Before Sora now is out for the public, it's been replicated by a number of different, like Luma Labs and Runway and all the Kling and all these different AI services that are on the level that Sora demoed half a year ago. And OpenAI is not two generations ahead, producing magnitudes higher innovation than anyone else. They're just slightly more ahead, and that's the case with O1 or Strawberry as well. That of course they are innovative. They are an incredibly innovative organization, but they're not doing magic unachievable by anyone else.
And I think that's like an interesting point. Just like I think OpenAI and Sam Altman has been successful in putting themselves on a pedestal in the sense that there's a mystery to it. They're always like head, they live the thing. And then we sort of start believing almost that and they have this whole thing like about super intelligence and there will be a God model. And they use all these words, right, in this vision. And then we sort of start believing that one company could do more than all other companies, and that's like, or all other people together. And I think, the Sora example is proof that, yes, they came out with a cool demo, but then like Luma and Runway are the ones making money of it. They don't, Sora's not even alive, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So
unless Hollywood is paying millions of dollars for exclusivity.
Could be something like that, right? And they're making some smart deal. We don't know that. But there's still, it's an, and I think that on top of open source as well, I just checked out Meta is spending like 40 billion this year on AI and giving it open source. There's never been 40 billion going into open source in incredible. It's not. And that's just like, take it. It's quite incredible, like quite incredible plans.
Yes. Yeah. One thing I would like to bring up as well is this. That O1 is also the answer to a question that's been asked over and over past 6 months, which is, what did Ilya see? This notion that it's almost like a conspiracy theory that Ilya saw something in the OpenAI lab that made him leave OpenAI and later start his own company. And O1 is what he saw. It's pretty mundane, but still, like on the concept of O1, like applying Occam's razor to all kinds of scenarios. Basically, Ilya was able to leave OpenAI and raise $1 billion to build something like probably the next generation of O1 or Q-Star in his company separately from OpenAI now.
Yeah. It's funny though, that one. I really don't think he saw. I think this is probably just like a clash of people, probably with different priorities. As most of these things
I think so too.
But I agree. Now there's at least probably should be no, not so much like fuel for the fire of that conspiracy. Maybe that's it for today. What do you think?
Yes, I think so too. Yeah. And just one more thought that I have is that OpenAI going so hard for O1 might be an indication that they actually are not super confident about GPT-5. Maybe they are working on like hard on GPT-5 behind the scenes, but it's also might be that they are not confident that the scaling beyond GPT-4 is possible or achievable, and that at least they think that it's really worthwhile to go to push hard for O1 at this point before GPT-5 is high on the agenda.
Yeah, I agree. They even kind of reset it very consciously, like this is a new type of model. We're not going to I think that's reasonable, and I think this is like the thing they've been like trying to tease with Strawberry and Q-Star and Orion and a bunch of different things. Now it's like O1, miss that Orion. They have these things, that they're playing with for the nerds like us out there. But I think that's really like interesting question. Is this basically just like, and like that we've realized, hey, we've trained these models and all the data of the internet. Now we need to do something else. And this is a proof there is something else. Because if that's the case, then that's really important. Then the question of the scaling laws doesn't become like the all important one anymore. Like if we add more data and compute, will it be better? So far that's been true. But there's always the question, will that continue? But in this case, now we have, another avenue for increased intelligence, which we discussed.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Rasmus. And thank you, dear listener, for being with us all the way. This was an episode of Co-Creating with AI. See you next week.